Have you ever sat at your family dinner table feeling like an alien visiting from another planet? Have you ever looked around at the people who share your blood and wondered how you could possibly belong to them? Imagine being born into a house where love comes with conditions, where silence echoes louder than screams, and where you learn to read the emotional temperature of a room before you could even read words on a page. If this resonates with you, if you've spent your life feeling like the family misfit, the one who sees too much, feels too deeply, asks too many uncomfortable questions, then what I'm about to share might completely transform how you understand your place in this world. Carl Jung, the pioneering psychologist who mapped the depths of the human psyche, believed something profound about souls like yours. He didn't think you were randomly placed into dysfunction. He didn't believe your painful childhood was some cosmic mistake or cruel joke. Instead, Jung proposed something revolutionary, that certain souls deliberately choose the most challenging families, not as punishment, but as preparation. Preparation for what? For becoming the healers, the cycle breakers, the ones who transform generational trauma into generational wisdom. Picture this: before you were born, your soul surveyed all the possible families it could enter. It could have chosen the warm, nurturing home with parents who communicated openly and loved unconditionally. It could have selected a stable household where children were cherished and celebrated for exactly who they were. But your soul, in its infinite wisdom, looked at that toxic family system riddled with unspoken pain, emotional neglect, and dysfunctional patterns and said, "That's where I need to go. That's where the real work needs to be done." This isn't about romanticizing abuse or minimizing the very real pain you've endured. The hurt was real. The neglect was real. The feeling of being unseen, unheard, and unloved was devastatingly real. But what if that pain wasn't the end of your story? What if it was actually the beginning of your awakening? Jung taught that the soul doesn't grow through comfort and ease. It grows through friction, through challenge, through what he called the sacred wound, that original rupture that forces us to dig deeper, to question everything, to ultimately find our way back to our authentic selves. You see, there's something different about souls who are born into toxic families. They carry what Jung called a different frequency. They're the empaths who absorb everyone's emotions, the intuitives who sense what's hidden beneath the surface, the truth tellers who can't pretend everything is fine when it's clearly not. These souls don't fit the family mold because they weren't meant to. They were meant to shatter it, to expose what's been hidden in shadow, to say, "This ends with me." But here's the question that might keep you awake tonight. What if your greatest wound holds the key to your greatest purpose? What if the family that seemed least equipped to love you was exactly the training ground your soul needed to develop the strength, wisdom, and compassion that would define your life's mission? The concept Jung called the family complex runs deeper than most people realize. It's not just about having difficult parents or a chaotic household. It's about inheriting an entire emotional blueprint that's been passed down through generations, like a psychological inheritance you never asked for. These complexes operate like invisible programs running in the background of family life, dictating unspoken rules, emotional patterns, and behavioral expectations that no one ever questions because they become so normalized in your family. There might have been the unspoken rule that children should be seen and not heard. Perhaps there was the family motto that showing emotion was weakness, that asking for help was selfish, or that questioning authority was dangerous rebellion. Maybe your family operated on the principle that love had to be earned through achievement, compliance, or caretaking others. These weren't conscious choices. They were inherited patterns playing out like a script that had been running for decades, maybe even centuries. But then you arrived and something fundamental shifted. Your soul carried different instructions, a different frequency that couldn't harmonize with the family's established rhythm. You were the child who felt too deeply in a family that prized emotional numbness. You were the one who asked inconvenient questions in a household built on comfortable lies. You were the sensitive one in a system that rewarded toughness, the creative one in a family that valued only practical achievements, the free spirit born into a cage of rigid expectations. This is where Jung's understanding of individuation becomes crucial. Individuation isn't just personal growth, it's the soul's fundamental drive toward wholeness, toward becoming who you truly are rather than who others need you to be. For most people, this process happens gradually, often in midlife when they finally question the roles they've been playing. But for those born into toxic families, individuation begins early, often in childhood, born from necessity rather than choice. The friction you felt wasn't a sign that something was wrong with you, it was evidence that something was right with you. Your inability to fit seamlessly into the family dysfunction wasn't a failure, it was your soul's refusal to be diminished. Every time you felt like a stranger in your own home, every moment you couldn't understand why your family operated the way it did, every instance where their version of normal felt completely alien to you, these were all signs that your authentic self was intact. That despite everything, you hadn't lost touch with your true nature. Jung believed that this kind of early friction serves a sacred purpose. It creates what he called a sacred wound, a psychic rupture that, while painful, opens a pathway to deeper consciousness. The wound forces you to develop capacities that you might never have needed otherwise. Extraordinary empathy, keen intuition, the ability to see through facades, the strength to stand alone when necessary. These aren't consolation prizes for a difficult childhood. They're the very qualities that will allow you to fulfill your soul's deeper purpose. The irony is profound. The family that seemed least capable of nurturing your gifts was actually the perfect environment for developing them. In a healthy, supportive family, you might never have learned to read subtle emotional cues, to trust your intuition over what you're told, or to find your inner strength when external support wasn't available. Your toxic family, without meaning to, was actually training you to become the healer, the counselor, the guide who could help others navigate their own difficult journeys. The role of the family seer carries a particular burden that Jung understood intimately. In every family system, there are spoken truths and unspoken truths. And in toxic families, the gap between these two realities can be vast. While everyone else learns to navigate around the unspoken truths, treating them like furniture that's always been there, you were born with the uncomfortable ability to see them clearly. This gift of perception wasn't something you developed, it was something you arrived with. Part of your soul's essential equipment for the work you came here to do. As a child, you noticed things that others seemed blind to. You felt the tension that everyone pretended wasn't there. You sensed the pain behind forced smiles, the anger beneath polite conversation, the fear hiding behind controlling behavior. You could tell when someone was lying, not because they were bad at it, but because your intuitive radar was naturally attuned to authenticity. In a family invested in maintaining certain illusions, your clarity was not welcomed as a gift, but experienced as a threat. This is why the family seer often becomes the family scapegoat. When you pointed out inconsistencies, you were labeled as troublemaker. When you expressed emotions that others were suppressing, you were called too sensitive. When you refused to participate in the family's shared denial, you were accused of being dramatic, disloyal, or mentally unstable. The family system needed someone to carry the blame for its dysfunction, and the person with the clearest vision became the perfect target. But Jung would say that your exile from the family's good graces was actually evidence of your spiritual maturity, not your failure. The capacity to see truth clearly, even when it's uncomfortable, is not a character flaw, it's a mark of consciousness. Your refusal to participate in collective denial wasn't rebellion, it was integrity. Your inability to pretend everything was fine when it clearly wasn't demonstrated not weakness but strength. This gift of perception comes with its own challenges. Living with such clarity in a world that often prefers comfortable illusions can be isolating. You see the patterns that others miss, feel the undercurrents that others ignore, sense the potential that others can't imagine. Sometimes this awareness feels like a burden because you can't simply choose to unsee what you've seen or unfeel what you felt. But this is precisely what makes you capable of the deep work that your soul came here to do. The family seer doesn't just see what is, they see what could be. They hold a vision of health, authenticity, and genuine love that stands in stark contrast to the dysfunction they were raised in. This vision isn't naive optimism. It's born from intimate knowledge of what doesn't work and a deep longing for what does. Your ability to envision something better isn't just personal healing, it's the foundation for generational healing. Understanding this role helps explain why you often felt like you were speaking a different language than your family members. You were speaking the language of consciousness while they were fluent in the dialect of unconscious patterns. You were calling for authentic connection while they were comfortable with surface-level interaction. You were seeking genuine intimacy while they were satisfied with performed relationships. The communication breakdown wasn't due to your inadequacy, it was the natural result of operating from completely different levels of awareness. The ultimate realization that Jung offers us is perhaps the most transformative of all. You are not just healing yourself, you are healing your entire lineage. Every time you choose consciousness over unconsciousness, authenticity over performance, love over fear, you send ripples both backward and forward through your family line. This isn't metaphorical, it's energetic reality. The unresolved traumas, the unspoken griefs, the unlived dreams of your ancestors live within your cellular memory, and your healing touches all of it. Your ancestors didn't have the tools, the language, or the cultural support to break the cycles that you're breaking now. They lived in times when survival often meant suppressing emotions, when speaking truth could be dangerous, when conformity was the price of belonging. They passed down their pain not because they were cruel, but because they didn't know how to transform it. They gave you what they had, which was often a mixture of love and limitation, protection and projection, care and control. But you are living in a different time with different possibilities. You have access to psychological understanding that they never had. You can name dynamics that they could only feel. You can seek healing that they could only dream of. This isn't about judging them or holding them responsible for wounds they didn't know how to heal. It's about recognizing that you are the culmination of their hopes, the answer to prayers they may have never consciously spoken. When you do the work of healing your sacred wound, when you learn to love yourself despite never receiving the love you needed, when you break the patterns that have run in your family for generations, you are not just changing your own life, you are changing the trajectory of every life that comes after you. Your children, if you have them, will inherit your healing instead of your wounding. Your friends, your community, everyone you encounter will benefit from the work you've done to become whole. This is why Jung called it sacred work. It's not just personal development, it's evolutionary participation. You are literally evolving the consciousness of your family line. The pain you've endured, the isolation you felt, the long journey back to yourself, none of it was wasted. It was all preparation for this moment when you could step into your role as the healer, the bridge builder, the one who transformed suffering into wisdom. The final truth is this: you were never meant to fix your family. You were meant to become yourself so completely, so authentically that your very presence would offer them a new possibility. Not everyone is ready for the level of healing and growth that you represent, and that's okay. Your job isn't to force anyone else's awakening. Your job is to embody your own awakening so fully that it becomes a beacon for anyone else who's ready to find their way home to themselves. You are the bridge between what was and what could be. You are the living proof that cycles can be broken, that wounds can become wisdom, that even the most challenging family circumstances can give birth to extraordinary consciousness. The sacred wound you carry isn't a mark of damage, it's a mark of destiny. You are exactly who your family line was waiting for, even if they don't know it yet. Your healing is their inheritance, and your wholeness is their gift to the future.